bloop bloop, bloop. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Yarn to Table. I'm Celeste and this is a show about my knitting life. If this is your first time watching, I hope you see something here that you like and you'll hit subscribe so you can join us again. And welcome back to everyone who is returning. I'm going to do a few things a little bit differently in this episode. Instead of having to ramble through all of the stuff about the Ravelry group and everything up front, I'm just going to try putting it in text on the screen. So hopefully that will be better. Let me know if you have opinions either way. And I'm also going to try omitting the stash enhancement segment for the time being, just because I would rather talk about the yarn when I'm using it. I think it's more valuable, and I'm not a person who buys a lot of yarn that's not directly related to plans for a project. So I just think it's a better way for me to share rather than just being like, oh, here's like a skein that I got, and then maybe the next week talking about it again while I'm working on the project. I also think that maybe, a part of me is wanting to pull back a little bit on something that might be, I don't want to use the word triggering. I don't mean triggering like in a bad way. I just mean something that might spur a desire to go out and buy more things, because I know that a lot of knitters struggle with buying more yarn than they can use and some of the stresses that brings. And so I just kind of want to focus more on the actual knitting than the collecting of the yarn. So that's just something I'm going to try. Certainly if I were to go to a fiber festival and have this whole experience that I was linking to the buying of the yarn that I wanted to share, I would do that. But I just don't think it's necessary to kind of pop in and give you a tally of anything that I happen to have purchased. I just think there's more interesting ways we can use our time discussing knitting. So I'm going to be trying that. Again, would love to hear your thoughts on that either way. Okay, so I think that's everything about that. I do also want to update you guys on the status of the KAL. This is the Fiber Quest KAL, which we have going on all year long. If you haven't heard about it before, there's a link in the doobly-doo to a playlist, the first episode of which will explain the KAL generally, and the next episodes will give you a lot of awesome information about different fibers, because that's what we're doing. We're trying out knitting with all different types of fibers this year. Now, I am recording this on the 29th, so by the time it goes live, you probably won't have any time left to contribute your FOs to the goat fiber thread. However, there are still a couple days left, so I'm not able to draw and announce the winner as of this recording, because it runs through the end of tomorrow. So I will be announcing the winner for that the next time I record, which I expect to be in 2 weeks on the weekend of Mother's Day. I think it's the 13th. So I believe I will be back here then, and if it's a little bit after then or whatever, that's when we're going to be announcing the winner of the goat fiber. However, we will be plunging full speed ahead into the next land of fiber, which is the land of plant fibers. Very excited about this. I'm going to be recording the video all about plant fibers just after this. Hopefully, I already have all of my notes written up, and I'm trying to make a Google Hangout session in a little while, which might actually interrupt this video, or it might land perfectly between those. I don't know. Just a whole afternoon of videos and knitting and live Google knitting, and it's just gonna be a big knitting afternoon. But that should be going up sometime around the time of this video. Ideally, I wanted to get it out for you guys a little bit earlier. That's what I had been doing in the past so that you have more time to watch the video about the fiber and kind of hopefully have that influence, not influence, but help inform your decision about your project. And then that you would be all set and ready to start the project on the first of the month. Things got a little bit away from me this time. I do not need to repeat ad infinitum how incredibly busy my life is, and I'm sure you can just imagine why things get away from me. I'm sure they get away from you. I think we're all busy and we all get it. So I do apologize for the fact that that is coming out now. Ideally, I wanted it to have come out like at least a week ago, but what are you going to do? I still think it's a very interesting and valuable video, and even if you have already chosen your project, it might help inform some decisions that you make as you complete your project, or else it might just be interesting for you to watch. These videos are really fun for me to do, talking about all the differences between different fibers, and even my husband, who doesn't knit, actually watches these ones. He doesn't watch the podcast, but he watches the fiber videos because he finds them really interesting. So hopefully there will be value there for everyone, even if it wasn't released as soon as I wanted it to be. I know you guys will forgive me for that. So once again, just a huge thank you to everyone that's participating in the Fiber Quest KAL. It is so much fun, and I just absolutely love seeing your projects, and it means so much to me that there has been just such an enthusiastic response to it, to the videos that I make on each of the fibers, and everyone just sharing in the chatter threads especially, and sharing their beautiful FOs. So thank you again for that. So now that we have talked KALs, I will share with you what I'm wearing today, which is also my FO of the episode. So excited. I finished another sweater, and I adore it. I adore this. So this is the Keurig Dami, which is a pattern by Goodwin Johnston for Brooklyn Tweed's winter collection that they just did. I fell in love with it and immediately bought the yarn when I saw it, and immediately, well, not immediately, but soon after that started knitting on it once I had finished my last sweater, because I don't like to have too many things going. But basically I was like all in, and this was a project that really helped me get my mojo going again after it slowed down a little bit at the beginning of the year. I knit this out of Brooklyn Tweed, which is what it was designed for. This is their Arbor, which is 100% Targhee. I always screw this up. I think it's 100% Targhee and a DK weight, and it doesn't have that tweediness that their Loft and their Shelter do, which are the Columbia Targhee blends. It's just more of a solid. Did not have to alternate skeins with this, which I hate, alternating skeins, so that was nice. And this was a bottom-up yoked pullover, and I have never done a yoke before. I've done bottom-up before, and I talked a little bit previously about how much I loved this construction, this bottom-up, and doing the sleeves separately, and then joining everything together. It was wonderful. I mean, in a way, it was sort of frustrating that I had to do all the vanilla knitting and not get to the fun part until the end. But at the same time, that's like a nice motivator to get you through the stockinette part. And also, it can be nice sometimes to have that mindless project. So the whole time I was knitting on this, I was really looking forward to this yoke, and by the time I joined for the yoke, it just flew because it was all I wanted to work on. I was so excited about the texture, and I was so excited about the fact that it was going to be finished right after that. And there's just something that feels so good about when you are really close to finishing a garment. So I flew on this. I ended up finishing it up like maybe a week or so ago. And it took a few days to block. So I was like, every morning I would check it and see if it was ready, and it was like, oh no, it's just a little bit too damp. And finally, when it was ready to wear, it felt like Christmas morning, and I wore it to work, and oh, I just love it. It is next to skin, comfortable. This is non-superwash, but I wouldn't even describe it as particularly rustic. I think it's somewhat similar to the Wool of the Andes non-superwash that I talked about when I knit my Eba out of that just recently. In that it's not like, it doesn't feel like merino or like cashmere or anything like that, but it's not in any way itchy. So I wear this and that next to the skin with nothing underneath except, you know, a bra, but no undershirt or anything. Although it's got enough ease that I could definitely layer and do like a cute little collar up here or something like that if I wanted to. The sleeves I knit exactly to pattern, and I was a little bit nervous about how that was going to work because knitting from the bottom up, you really don't exactly know. But it worked perfectly. They are perfect, and if they hadn't been, I would have probably cut into my knitting and lengthened or shortened them however that needed to go, and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Very minor kind of knitting surgery, but they worked out perfectly. Everything about the fit of this is perfect, and I feel really lucky because it was definitely a combination of luck and planning that made the fit work. I got, with my gauge swatch, I got a fabric that I really liked, but the gauge was a little big, so I sized down 2 full sizes, which is kind of a scary thing to do. And I definitely felt like I was gambling, but, you know, I kind of did like some of the math, but not all of the math, and it was a bit of a gamble, but it ended up working out. I loved that I got to actually knit the smallest size because it worked up faster, and I just really love the fabric that created. It's a little bit less dense than how it was designed, but it's quite dense. As you can see, you can't like see through it at all. So I got this with, I don't even remember what needle size, and it doesn't matter because we're all different, so I'm not even gonna bother. But I believe I sized down one from whatever they recommended in the pattern, and in order to get the gauge, I would have had to have sized considerably down. So there you go. Let's see. Oh, so I wanted to talk about the collar because I think it is so brilliant. I'll show you a little bit closer. You can see it was knit in knit 2, purl 2, rib, and then for the last row there are these decreases that happened here and here. So in every other purl section there was a decrease. Well, there were 2 decreases, I think, toward the center, and that did a really even job of pulling it in, which helps it just sit exactly right. And I think this is, yeah, I think this is the first ribbed collar, neckline, not collar. This is the first ribbed neckline that I've done on a sweater that I've kept for myself. All of the other ones have just had different necklines for some reason. Like I have a couple like funnel necks, and I have one that's like a cardigan that like starts at the back of the neck and comes around. And so anyway, I don't have anything to compare it to because I don't really remember exactly how it lay or if it ended up stretching out or anything like that on the one that I made for my friend. But I just found that finish, rather than just having it be plain rib and, you know, finishing it off or even doing like a tubular, you know, bind off, it just keeps everything lying so beautifully flat, and it just makes the collar just stable in this way that you want it to be. It's hard to even describe, but I just feel like it's a very, very, very good detail. Everything lies nicely here as well because there was some short row shaping on the back that you do just before you start the texture. So once you join to do the yoke before you start the texture. And so that brings the back up a little bit, which helps the neckline lie the way that we tend to appreciate clothing lying. Usually the back piece of anything store-bought goes up a little bit higher, and a lot of knitting designs will do that, or it's a really easy alteration to make if a design doesn't have it. This being my first yoked sweater, I was very pleased to find that I love the way that a yoked sweater fits. I just think it's so incredibly comfortable. It looks nice. It's easy to move in. Really, really like that. I know some people alter yoked sweaters to have like more of the stitches on the front part as like a large bust alteration. In this, the yoke really starts above my bust, well, just at the top of it. And I didn't try any alteration like that, and I feel like it fits perfectly. That's something I might consider doing if I were doing like more of an oversized thing. That was where the yoke was going to start further down, but I don't think it's really an issue, or at least I haven't noticed it as an issue. I don't feel like I have too much fabric in the back and not enough in the front. It feels like it just fits perfectly. So, so that's really good. And there were a couple just small little techniques that I learned with this that were really interesting. A new kind of increase and a new kind of decrease. The decrease is staying in my repertoire. Like it's an all. So okay. So so the texture is all very simple, and it all involves decreasing, increasing, and sometimes multiple increase stitches and multiple decrease stitches, and knit and purl stitch. So there's not any cabling or anything like that. But the pattern gives you an alternative way to construct a slip-slip knit, which is a left-leaning decrease, which I loved. And then it also, when I was knitting the sleeves and there were increases, it gave an alternate increase, which was fine, but I don't know that I will do it again. So that one was the alternate increase was called an invisible increase, and it was a way of kind of twin stitching into the row below the row that you were on, which twin stitching is my preferred way of doing short rows. I'll always do a twin stitch when there's like a wrap and turn or any other type of short row. It's something that I learned from my first sweater pattern, which was also a Brooklyn tweed pattern. It used twin stitches for short rows. They're also used in the short rows of the Fish Lips Kiss heel. So if you are familiar with that, you know how to make a twin stitch. So basically it's like you're going along and then you just sort of twin stitch into the row beneath you. And it's a cool way of making an increase. It isn't very visible, but I don't think it's necessarily more invisible than a make one. And some people don't like make ones. They find them awkward to do, but I don't really mind them. And then the other thing that I think makes it a little bit complicated is because you're sort of doing it into the under row, it actually places the increase lower down than the row that you're in. And so you kind of have to change up what row you would be increasing on. Like you can't just use it interchangeably with another type of increase. Because if the pattern is written for that, then you've got to do them there. And if you did a different type of increase, they would actually be one row higher up. So that was interesting to learn. But the sort of alternative way of doing a slip-slip knit was just genius. And basically, it's just like I'm sharing, just to be clear, I'm sharing these. These are like techniques that were not invented in this pattern or sold like trademarked as a part of this pattern. They're just techniques that exist in the world that the pattern turned me on to. So that's why I feel comfortable sharing them with you guys in a way that I would not share like the chart. You know what I mean? So anyway, the alternative slip slip knit, you know, is just, you just turn around the first stitch to where it's twisted on the needle. So you just like bring it up and put it back on, so that now instead of your stitches both lining up in one way, one is like turned to open it. And then you just knit through the back, two of them together through the back loop. So there's no like getting them both onto this needle and then sticking this one in and then doing that and then knitting through. Like it's just bloop 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 bloop. It's like faster, simpler, less awkward, and that is so how I'm doing slip slip knit it. Slip slip knits. I want to say from now on, I will say it's how I've been doing them since I learned. I've been a fan of that. So yeah, that's the Keurig Dami. Wonderful pattern, very easy to follow. Would be a great beginner's sweater. The texture is fun and interesting, but not too complicated. And I just think it's lovely to wear. I feel like I'm going to get so much wear out of this sweater. And I definitely want to make more yoked pullovers because I love pullovers. Like this is the kind of thing that I will just wear almost every day in the fall and winter. So very, very into it. And, you know, also in the spring, if like this year we have a very, very cold spring all the way through April, which we have had. By the way, if you are curious, I am drinking chamomile and lavender tea from Traditional Medicinals, and I have some honey in there as well. I always find I like honey with chamomile because I think it's a little bit too subtle of a flavor without honey for some reason. I mean, I still like it, but yeah. I don't usually put honey in my tea, but I tend to when I have chamomile for some reason. So, okay, so moving along, we have some whips to share. First, I'll show you my progress on my Sunset Highway by Caitlin Hunter. So, as you'll know if you're a returning viewer, I knit on this only when I'm recording Return to Stars Hollow. So I've had a few recording sessions, I think maybe 3, since you last saw it. And here is the progress I have made. So I've gotten through the first 2 contrast colors, this one and this one, and I've just started the main body color of the sweater. So this dark will be the yoke. These are contrasting color work within the yoke, and then the color work is going to bleed here into the main body of the sweater. So you can see how that is all going to look. And yeah, I'm still very excited about this. I stay interested in it because I'm only allowed to work on it once a week when I record. And so it's really great because it's like a perfect use of this sort of pairing strategy where you, like, I look forward to recording because I get to work on the sweater, and I look forward to the sweater because I only can work on it when I record. And so it just makes all of that more special and like keeps my interest. So it's really great. Here are my floats. They're not the prettiest floats in the whole world, but I think they're okay. I think they're all right. I do love the look of floats. And if anyone's ever come up with a way to like use floats as the design feature on the outside, I bet someone has. I bet that would be really cool. This one you can get a great example of. It also has short row shaping in the back. Here it was done before, or it was done at the top of the neck. In this sweater it's done at the base of the yoke. This is also a yoked sweater, by the way. So there you can see how the back comes up higher than in the front, and yeah, that serves that same purpose. So that's that. Just want to update you on that. I've talked more extensively about it in the past, and all of those colors and everything is always on my project pages on Ravelry, so check that out if you're interested in knowing more. Another just mini update on a project you've seen before is the Guernsey wrap. This is Brooklyn Tweed, and this is the same yarn that my sweater is made out of. They're Arbor in the colorway Carob. And this is a Jared Flood pattern for Brooklyn Tweed. And I've just knitted a little bit on the sky, maybe from like here or something, since you last saw it. I knit a ton on this sweater, and I've started another sweater, and I've done some swatching for future projects. So and when I've been on the go, I've still been getting a few rows in here and there on those knee socks, which I'll share once there's anything to report home on. But yeah, so I just got a little bit more going on this. I've talked more extensively about this guy in the past as well, about how I'm altering and only using the first chart for reasons of gonna run out of yarn. And yeah, another just very, very simple knit and purl texture. This one doesn't even have increases or decreases, so it would be like perfect for a beginner. And it's going to be about twice as long as this when I'm done. And I think I will be very excited to wrap up in that come fall. Probably won't finish it until it's too warm here, but yeah. So the new project, the new whip, is in the field supply bag. Get a little updated look at my pins. My pin situation here. So I cast on a couple nights ago for the Tenya by Caitlin Hunter. That is, by the way, how you pronounce it. It's Italian. So like lasagna, how the G before the N makes an NY sound. I learned that from Fruity Knitting, which is like my favorite podcast. So that is the Tenya. It's like a nice boxy cropped top, which you've probably seen before because it's hugely popular. And I cast on for this in some woolen vine yarn on the BFL base footsie, which is a 2-ply. Yeah, in Dirty on Purpose is the colorway. So I cast on for this a couple days ago. There are a lot of stitches on this needle. I just used like, I don't know why I used this length. I probably should have used something even longer than this, even if I was expecting it to be like normal sweater size, but I think it's a lot wider than than something like this sweater. So it's jammed. I really need to get a different cable. But anyway, so I cast this on a couple days ago, and I am working on the lace chart that is at the base of it. And yeah, it is fun. The first few rounds of the lace chart involve some knitting 4 together, which is not the most fun thing in the world, but I'm through those now. So it's all going a little bit faster. And, you know, for how much you can really see what lace is, it's got this kind of scalloped edge that it's going to have. And a little bit of this, well, I'm showing you the wrong side, a little bit of like ribbing with lace in between, creating this nice scallop. It's cool. It's really cool. So I am on like I've done like 10 rows of a 47 row round chart in a couple knitting sessions. So I think it'll be a little while before I get through the lace, but when I do the rest of it, it's going to be quite mindless. And I'm hoping that I can, I mean, I'm sure I can, but what I'm planning on doing is getting through the lace in time to where I can take this with me when I go to Wales, which is at the end of May, because I want to have more mindless knits with me there, but I don't want to just do socks. I'm really feeling sweaters, and I want to keep doing sweaters. So normally I just take socks when I go to Cambridge, and if you're new, I am an MFA candidate at a school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I go there for like a week and a half every June and July. And then this year, I'm also going to a study abroad program for 2 weeks in Wales, which I'm going to do and then come back and then immediately go to Cambridge right after that. So I have a lot of MFA knitting coming up, and when I'm knitting, I want it to be as mindless as possible because I need to be focusing on the lecture, the reading, or whatever I'm in, sometimes even a discussion, and I want to be able to focus on it, and I also want to make it clear to everyone that I am focused on it. So as much as possible, I like to have completely vanilla projects so that I don't even have to look down. And I certainly wouldn't ever want to have like a chart out or anything like that, because I just want it to be really clear to everyone that I'm completely present with them. So it's really nice when I have something vanilla and I can just completely keep eye contact the whole time. And then that makes it very clear to everyone from the start that like I'm doing this thing with my hands, but I'm totally here. Like, you know, I prefer doing it that way. And I also won't knit during workshops, which is when you talk about each other's writing. Even though I totally could, but I just feel like that's one more way that I can like be more present for everyone who's there. So if I, if I made the rules, I would knit all the time at all occasions. But so what I'm trying to say is that if I get through the lace, this will make a good candidate to go with me to Wales, and I'm hoping that it will, because if I don't, then I'm not going to knit on it for like 2 weeks, and then I'll have a short period of time, and then I'll be in Cambridge again, so it'll get sort of pushed to the side, and I don't want that. So I don't think it should be a problem. I've got like a month, so I'm sure I will be fine with that. I've noticed I seem to knit sweaters at a rate of like 1 every 2 months. Just if you average everything out to like the simpler ones and the more complicated ones, and with having a lot of other projects going at the same time and everything, not a lot, but a couple other projects. So, by that logic, I would think that being through the lace will be at least a halfway point, so I should be through that in a month. I don't know. I'm never good at estimating time like that with knitting. Do you guys find that when people see you knitting in public, they will always ask you, or if they find out that you knit something that you made, like Muggles will always ask you, how long does it take to knit that? And I never know how to answer, because like I can't give them hours put into it, because the idea that I would like time myself and actually know how many hours I put into like this sweater is, I am so far from having any idea. And I could tell them like 2 months on this sweater, meaning like from cast on to bind off date, but I feel like that doesn't give you any real information, because they don't know how many hours I spend a day knitting, and they don't know how many other projects I have going on. So usually I'll try to give them something like that. I'll give them I'll be like, well, I cast it on this long ago and I just bound it off, and like I have a couple other things going, and I, usually will knit for like at least an hour a day. I'll say something like that. But like they always seem to think that I'm going to have some clear exact answer. And it's funny because I feel like it comes from this point of view of like that would be informing like whether you decided to knit a sweater. Was like, oh well, this will take this many hours, so I can do that. Sort of the way that like you look at a book and you think like, oh well, this book is 700 pages, that's a really long book, I don't think I want to read 700 pages about this subject. Oh, here's something that's only 250, let me pick that up, that's more of a shorter book. Like everyone kind of has in their head the idea of how much time it's going to take them to read books of those lengths. And so I think like non-knitters think that maybe knitters have more of a clear idea. And I do think that we have like a sort of vague sense, like a 250 page book is a normal length book and 700 is really long. Everyone kind of has that sense in their head. And as knitters, I think we kind of have a sense in our head of like, okay, that project is over 1,000 yards of yarn. That's going to be like a sweater. That's, not going to be like a quick knit. But I don't think that we look at something and think like, I have this many hours, because for us, I mean, at least for me, and maybe this is the more process over product side of me, I'm in it for the knitting, and when it's over, I'm going to be knitting still. Like I will be knitting every day. I'm not just going to knit until the sweater is done. Like when the sweater is done, I'm going to cast on another sweater. I will be knitting all the time regardless. So I don't think about things so much in terms of like, how much of a time commitment is this? Because my time will be committed to knitting regardless, and how many projects I can accomplish in that period of time, like that matters, but it's not the primary thing that like determines whether I knit something or not, I guess. I feel like I had a lot of trouble explaining what I meant with that, and I hope that was not too incredibly rambly. I'm going to move on, even though I feel like I have not completely clarified what I mean. I'm not sure I'm capable of it right now, so I'm just going to move on. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully you understood what I meant. Okay, on the horizon, I have knit some swatches, as you will have seen in the intro. These are my Tenya swatches. I started with a US3, which was like one below what she said it might take, which is what I usually do. I usually go down. And the stitch gauge was not too far off, but the row gauge was really short. You can see that's not even a square. It's like very short. And then I sized up one to, I think, a US4. I have knots on them, so I know. Yeah, a US4. And yeah, you can see like that did not make the row gauge that much wider, but it affected the, I'm sorry, it didn't make the stitch gauge that much wider, but it affected the row gauge significantly. You can also see that these they look a little bit different, and I think they might have been from different, sorry, my computer went to sleep. I think they might have been from different skeins. Didn't look like I had pulled from one of the skeins, but they look so different. I feel like they might have been. But maybe it's just this section of the skein had more of that speckling on it. I don't know. I don't want to alternate skeins, but I think maybe I should. I really hate it, but I think I probably should. It's hand-dyed yarn, and these swatches look different. I can't think about it right now. but I really, really don't want to. I really, really don't want to. I don't think it's as noticeable when they're like speckled as if it were a solid. I don't know. I'm gonna think about that later. I will think about that later. I will think about that tomorrow. As Scarlett O'Hara says. And then I have some plant fiber swatches, because that's what's on the horizon, is the land of plants, which means I am starting a new project for the KAL, and hopefully it will not be quite as doomed as my last attempt to be a part of my KAL. Wish me luck. So this is going to be my first and possibly only plant fiber project. This is for the Silver Monk sweater by We Are Knitters. I got a kit from them, which I've shown on the podcast in the past, and this is their Pima cotton worsted in light salmon. I did a garter stitch swatch because it is a garter stitch sweater, and I think it's going to be an incredibly mindless quick knit. I am not sure when I'm going to cast it on. I needed to wait until the beginning of May, and I've got the Tenya going, and I don't want to have too many things going, but I also kind of just want to cast it on. So I don't know when it's getting cast on, but this is happening, and I'm sure it'll knit up quickly once it has been cast on. And then I also went ahead and swatched for another warm weather item out of a plant fiber. This is for the Amalia by Pam Allen, and it's in the Lindy chain. I'm just looking up the fiber content of Lindy chain real quick. I think it is cotton and linen, but let me see. So this is a chain. Really can't see. A chained, almost like a crochet chain or like a knit tube style yarn, and it is fingering weight 70% linen, 30% cotton. And I want to do the Amalia tank, which is a like peplum style tank out of it. You will see a lot of times the linen, and I'll talk more about this in the plant fiber video, but you'll see linen plied like this a lot to add more body to it, because it can be a bit of a limp fiber. And it just has a really lovely drape to it. Very thin and delicate, and it's softened considerably since I've blocked it, and it'll soften even more every time that I wash it. So yeah, those are my plans for warm weather knits coming up. I don't know how many of them will get finished in the 2-month span of the KAL. Probably just the first one, but I plan to start knitting on this one after that, and hopefully getting some more warm weather knits in my wardrobe, as well as the Tenya, which is with wool, but I think because it's short sleeved and airy will be great for wearing in the warm weather as well, which is why I am knitting it now. Yeah, so all that's left is Chit Chat, and gosh, I don't have anything vanilla to knit while I talk to you. Can I knit on this guy while I talk to you, I wonder? If I just take a minute to find out where I am in the chart, I'm sure I can. Okay, so what I want to talk about for Chit Chat is something that came up yesterday. I was watching an episode of Soprano Knits, and Becky Sorensen, who hosts the show, who has the show, she was saying that like she's trying to declutter, and she sort of has questions about like what to do with the things that she's made, because they're meaningful to her, but at the same time, like, she there are things that she doesn't want anymore. I've thought about this at length because I am like a decluttering fanatic. I had a channel on YouTube all about minimalism before this channel. I have not made videos for it for a long time, although I do actually want to get back into doing that at some point, but it's just like totally can't be a thing right now. And so I thought about this a lot, and I kind of wanted to share my take on it. And so I'm definitely very influenced by the Marie Kondo school of thought that your possessions should bring you joy, and you don't want to be holding on to anything that is making you feel bad, guilty, whatever. I don't hold on to gifts that people gave me that I don't like. I let the gift be the thought, you know, that they thought of me, and I know that the gift served its purpose in the moment that they gave it to me and showed me that they cared about me in that way. And I don't, you know, feel the need to hold on to that thing and kind of out of guilt. So I kind of feel similarly about things that I've made for myself. I think that they serve their purpose in the making, and if the object is not something that brings me joy any longer, it's not useful or beautiful, if I don't wear it, then I tend to allow myself to get rid of it while recognizing that it's not a loss or a failure, but it served its purpose. So for example, last year I made a tank top for the KAL that I hosted, the Great Unravel that I co-hosted with Caitlin of Wool Jewel and Taylor of Wool Needles Hands. And that was not a garment that I loved wearing. I enjoyed the process of unraveling something and, you know, participating with all of you guys and turning it into something new. All of that and that process was sort of the purpose of that. And then after that, when it hung in my closet and I didn't wear it because I didn't really like it, it was clear that its purpose had been served. And so it wasn't a waste or anything. It was just, it had sort of done its job now, and now it was time for it to move on. So I donated that recently when I did another closet clear out just a few weeks ago. And so I am definitely like someone who can get rid of things that I have made or that other people have made, even including sweaters, because that's how strongly I really believe in this idea that items can, you know, have a lifespan, and they can have like a moment where they were meaningful, or where they were teaching you some new knitting technique, or, you know, being a way that someone who loved you can show you that they love you by giving you a gift or whatever, and then they can kind of move on. So that's sort of my perspective on it. I will also say that I will keep some things as keepsakes. Not everything that I own has to be serving a purpose, like in and around my house and as like in a utilitarian way. So I think a big tip that I would give to anyone who's like interested in decluttering or minimizing is to sort of recognize what purpose things are serving, and why, if that you do still want to own them, like why you want to own them and what they are, and then putting them in the proper place and assigning them that meaning, so that everything is sort of sorted and you understand what's going on. So For example, if you're knitting and you know that like you sort of know the difference between your current whips and your hibernating items, right? And in my mind, that can kind of like clear space in my mind to know like these are the projects that I have going right now. And when I officially call something hibernating and I can kind of push it out of my mind, and I know that it is not one of my whips. And so it still, maybe even just sits in the closet with the other whips. Maybe it's in exactly the same place. But in my mind, I'm able to file it in a different box, and that helps me to feel like I'm not being dragged down by it. And I feel a similar way with any of the items that I own. So if there's an item of clothing, handmade or otherwise, that I don't want to get rid of because it is a keepsake, then I officially call it a keepsake, and I take it out of the closet and I put it in a box with other keepsakes, and I put it in the attic. And it's like, that is where the keepsakes go. So if Becky, for example, wanted to hold on to the first sweater that she ever knit because it reminds her of, knitting a sweater for the first time and where she was in her life when she knitted and that kind of thing, I would say maybe that's a keepsake. And what you need to do is take it out of your closet so that it's not making you feel bad anymore and reminding you that like not everything in your closet is something that you want to wear. And instead you put it in this box that when you open the box some other time, if you want to reminisce, you see, oh, here's the first dress I made and here's the first sweater I made, and those are all keepsakes. But you're not staring at them in your closet every single day with them taking up too much mental energy as items in your closet that you consider wearing, and then every time that you choose not to wear them you have to feel bad all over again because they're not serving their purpose, because you've like recognized that that's not their purpose anymore. They have a different purpose. So I think that's a big one, is like categorizing things properly and storing them accordingly. Even if you don't actually get rid of a lot of things, if you move things to the proper places, if you take things out of your closet and you put them in the keepsakes, that is going to feel like clearing a lot of space, mental space, and it's going to make your closet more functional. And it's just a really important part of it, I think. I feel similarly about the clothes or things that I feel like I need to sell. One of the things that Becky talked about was like having things that you feel like you should get some money out of and you can't really afford to just give them away. And I've been in that position before where I felt like I don't have the time or energy to sell these things, but I feel like I need to sell them because this is like some kind of investment. It's an opportunity to get money out of this thing, and I really need to get as much money out of this thing as I can. I've definitely been in that position before, and what I did was, if I couldn't sell it at that time because I like was too busy to commit to, taking all the photos and putting them up on eBay and sending them out or whatever the process was going to be, I would still take them out of my closet and then put them into a designated place that was the things that I'm going to sell. So I actually, in my case, I put them in the trunk of my car because I wanted them just completely out of my house. And that just helped me to like take clothes and put them in the trunk of my car. And then like when I did list things on eBay, it was like things that I was going to sell on eBay were all in the trunk of my car and not anywhere else, so that it was like they were already gone. And then if I didn't end up selling them, and I decided eventually that I was going to just donate them because selling them didn't work out or whatever, they were already in the car and I could take them and then go donate them. So it's again just like this process of identifying what something is, and even if there's some sort of like thing that's holding you up about selling it, you've still identified, well, this is something that does not go in my closet anymore because it's not a current part of your like working wardrobe. So anyway, I was just very fascinated to hear her talking about her challenges with that and like her questions that she was coming up against and stuff. And I couldn't help myself because this is like one of my favorite topics of conversation. So for what it's worth, those are my thoughts on decluttering the things that are meaningful to you, especially things that you made for yourself. And I think this is probably a pretty relevant topic for a lot of us because, as Becky was pointing out, a lot of people get into making our own clothing, maybe just from the point of view of like enjoying crafting, but a lot of times you end up crossing over with people who are very interested in having a more ethical wardrobe in terms of like issuing fast fashion, and a lot of times even having like a smaller working wardrobe, capsule wardrobes. These are all things that there's a lot of crossover with people who are sewing and knitting their own clothing. There was a lot of people talking about stuff like that in the other corner of YouTube that I was a part of when I was doing my channel, which is called Bookish and Bell, by the way, and I think it's linked from my main channel page if anyone is interested in seeing what those videos were, if you're interested in this topic. But what was I going to say? Oh, so there's just so much crossover, I think, between like the crafty world and the world of ethical fashion. And a lot of times, even if you can enter wanting to make your own clothes through being interested in ethical fashion, or you can enter ethical fashion through being interested in crafting. But no matter where you came from, a lot of times you end up getting interested in the other thing. So I hope that just sort of talking a little bit about decluttering and simplifying and kind of getting your wardrobe to be to work for you better is something that you guys find interesting, because I have so much more that I could say about it. So let me know if you want more kind of regular talk about that, maybe in the Chit Chat segment, or maybe there's even another kind of segment that we could talk about that with. But I'm like all into that stuff, so yeah, let me know. And I guess that brings us to the end of our conversation today. I will see you guys in another 2 weeks, as I said, and get all those FOs in that goat fiber thread, and I cannot wait to see your plant fiber projects as you start working on those. And I will see you guys soon. Bye!